I'm Wendy Kay of the Empaths, Ascension, and Psychic Stuff community, and I'm so glad you've chosen or have been guided to listen to one of our community shows. By continuing to listen, you agree to the terms found at wendyswisdom.ca/terms. Hi everyone. Many of us are being told that we have what's called a fragile energy at this time. So I thought it would be a good idea to speak with someone in spirit and get some answers as to what that actually means for us. And this is an interview with a divine being, but really it is a channeled message from this divine being. So as I get answers from the divine being, I am writing down what the divine being has said and then putting it into an interview format. So the voice that you're hearing, of course, is not the actual voice of the divine being. It's just another voice that shows you that the divine being is now speaking. However, if you feel or pull in the energy when that divine being is speaking, you should actually be able to feel the energy of that divine being, because the energy of that divine being has been infused into the words. At least that's what I was told. This was a particularly enlightening interview for me personally, because ever since I started going through energy changes back in 2002, at least that's when the really intense energy changes happened, I have been wondering what has been happening and why I felt the way I did. Now, I was given explanations at the time by Spirit, but I still never quite understood what they meant. And they would always tell me that later on down the road, I would really understand what it was that they were sharing with me. And I can say that now I actually do understand all the messages and all the things that they were telling me about my health and the state of my energy. Now, the other thing that I find that is extremely important, I guess, for everybody to know is that it's very normal in spirit when they tell you things that you get more of the truth, I guess is the way to say it, once you're closer to the end or even after things have finished. So, for example, if you've been given some information on a past incarnation, once you get to the point where you're really close to resolving any issues that have to do with that past incarnation, you're probably going to get a lot of information that will suddenly make all the lights go on and have you saying to yourself, oh, now I get it. Prior to that point, you'll probably only understand a little bit or get little tiny bits and pieces. At least that's what I have noticed over the 30 years or so I've been doing past life readings for people. So that type of communication is often quite the same, where you will get a lot more information once you are closer to things being finished or once they have already happened. I don't know why it happens that way, but it does. And it did seem to happen for this particular podcast as well. All the information that was being shared all of a sudden made things for me so much clearer. I could suddenly say, oh, now I get it. Oh, now I understand. Oh, that's what you meant. I'm hoping that a lot of you are going to feel the same way, because you've probably been told a lot of things by various people out on the internet. And I'm thinking this is going to hopefully clear some things up or explain some things a little further so that you have more of a concrete answer rather than the vague, you're going through changes and that's it. So I hope you enjoy today's interview. I said a prayer and I asked for a divine being that specialized in fragile energy to come through to answer the questions that I had and the questions that were given to me by members of the community, which is the Empaths, Ascension, and Psychic Stuff community. If you would like to support the work that I'm doing to help others to get this information, you can show your support by joining the Empaths, Ascension, and Psychic Stuff community. not only will you be supporting what I'm doing, but you'll be able to participate in anything that happens within the group and get any benefits that are given from being in the group, depending on the level that you join at. And you can do that by going to patreon.com/Wendy Kay, patreon.com/WendyKay, and I'd love for you to join. This divine being did confirm that he was positive and that he was assigned to me for this interview. So here are the questions and his responses. Hello, and thank you for coming through to answer our questions.
You are quite welcome. I am pleased to be of service.
I guess my first question is, why are you dressed as a doctor? And I'm guessing that you guys out there who are listening to this will now realize that when this divine entity appeared, he was dressed as an actual doctor. So that's where my question comes from.
Because I am a doctor, my dear. I am an energy doctor. I work in the spiritual hospital as well as doing other things, so I am well versed in dealing with those who have a fragile energy. I have trained for many, many of your incarnations to learn how to understand and work with the energy connection between the physical human body and the spiritual human body that is attached to that physical human body. It is a fascinating field of study and one that I think you would find of interest as well.
Yes, probably, you're right. I find the study of energy really, really fascinating. Are you considered to be a type of spirit guide?
No, no, no. At one time, I would have been considered a healer or a type of spirit guide, but that is not what I am considered now. I could play that role if I desired, but I prefer to work in spirit at this point. There is much work to be done now, and we don't expect that to change anytime soon. At this point, I am considered a higher level teacher in the field of energy healing, with a specialty in spiritual and physical body connections.
That's a really interesting answer because it shows how specific our learning can be when we are in the spirit world. And I'm sure it won't come as a surprise to you that members of the Empaths, Ascension, and Psychic Stuff community want to know what it means when your energy is fragile. I think we all wanted to know exactly what that meant.
Ah, yes. It means that your energy is weak and subject to easily being damaged by many different outside sources. When your spiritual energy is weak, it affects your physical body. So that means that your physical body is also weak. It means you must take better care of yourself than normal. When your energy is weak, it can influence your thoughts, decisions, mental capacity, and judgment. So having fragile energy is not something to take lightly.
You said that there could be damage from outside sources. What kind of damage could there be?
Outside sources can drain the energy even more. Outside sources can attack where there are holes or rips in the energy and make them worse. Outside sources can increase the number of energy blockages in the spiritual body. Outside sources can more easily attach to the spiritual body and influence the person's life path. It would be unique to each person, but the damage is not beneficial to the person and can heavily affect the person's life path. All damage weakens the spiritual and physical body. A weak energy is susceptible to being damaged more easily, and that affects your physical body by making it weaker and more susceptible to damage and or illness that can manifest in the physical body. So the energy is not flowing as it should be, or you are not getting the full flow of energy you need to maintain a healthy physical body. It also lowers your spiritual vibration and can affect your communication with those in spirit. So one may not see or communicate with spirit as well as they would when the energy is strong and filled with vitality.
One of the members of the community wanted to know how your energy becomes fragile.
Your energy can become fragile in various ways. It can become fragile because you have been ill or have been in an accident of some type that has done severe damage to your spiritual energy body. Many are familiar with that type of fragile energy, as they have the physical proof to back up how they feel. They have a reason for feeling as they do, and others can easily understand why the person is weak or suffering. You can become fragile if you simply don't take care of yourself. This is usually a much slower, degenerative process, so your energy becomes weaker and weaker over time because you repeat the same ways of living. So at first, you are not fragile, but over time, you become fragile. That typically comes from not eating properly, not resting when rest is needed, maintaining a high stress life, not exercising, indulging in poor habits to excess, such as smoking, drinking alcohol, participating in entertainment drugs, etc. Doing these things once in a while is not an issue. But when one does that day after day, week after week, month after month, and year after year, you will ultimately have fragile energy. You can also be born with fragile energy, but that is a specific lesson or life experience for a soul, and it does not come from what you do. Your energy can become fragile if you spend time around those who are negative in nature, as that can drain you by lowering your vibration or forcing you to be in an energy that is too heavy for you. It was not so much of an issue in the old energy, but it is much more damaging with the new Ascension energy. That is why you will see so many people walking away from relationships or away from those who bring them down, so to speak. If a person continues to seek that type of company, it will lower their vibration. There is no way around it. As I said, this is not the old energy where one could associate with lower energies easily and not be as affected. In the old energy, one would have been mildly affected, not as affected as you would be now. Now, when you are affected, it is much more damaging. It is not so much of a choice. If you do it now, you will see your life being affected by the lowering of your vibration. Your energy won't become fragile from one or two encounters of this type. It will become fragile over time, though. Negative entities can also make your energy fragile, and they will do that much faster than being around negative people, although people who are negative tend to have negative entities attached to them, and those negative entities will most likely try and attach to you. Negative entities can make an energy fragile quite quickly compared to the past. There are many more negative entities now, and they are attaching to people at an astounding rate. You are seeing their influence all of the time. You only have to listen to the news. We expect the cases of energy fragility from negative entities to increase dramatically as time passes. That was not such a big concern prior to the energy changes. But now that there are millions of negative entities released into the spiritual realm, it is now of concern. These negative entities have been instructed to drain the energy of those they have attached to, which of course increases the likelihood of one's energy becoming fragile. You can have fragile energy if those in spirit are working on your energy body, doing energy surgery, making energy connections, etc. That causes fragility, and while you may not physically feel well while that is happening, you probably won't realize the extent to which you are fragile. That's why it's so important to listen to your body. If one's energy was weak or damaged to begin with, adding in the energy work increases the damage and makes one much more fragile. We expect the cases of energy fragility to increase based on those who have had shots to protect themselves from viruses, Many of those shots affect the flow of energy from the spiritual body to the physical body. It does not allow for the proper flow of energy. So over time, energy will become fragile. We expect to be very busy.
Now, the following questions: are there different degrees of being fragile? If you have fragile energy, will you always end up in the spiritual hospital? What work would necessitate a person being in the spiritual hospital? Is having damaged energy the same as having fragile energy? How does having fragile energy affect one physically? How does having fragile energy affect someone spiritually? Can having fragile energy lead to death? Are there things that you shouldn't do when your energy is fragile? Can you be fragile at any point in your life? How do you strengthen your energy? How will we know if we're strong enough to go out and socialize and do things? And of course, how much longer will our energy be fragile? All of those questions will be answered in the second part of this interview, which can be found in the Empaths, Ascension, and Psychic Stuff community. Thank you so much for answering our questions and helping us to better understand fragile energy.
You are quite welcome. Divine blessings to each and every one of you listening.
So that was the end of the interview, and it does seem that the fragile energy that he's speaking about, most of it is coming from the energy changes that are taking place and the energy connections to the Golden Kingdom Earth. It's really out of our control, and all we can do is take better care of ourselves. If you enjoyed today's show, please make sure to follow and share it. Don't forget, you can also support the show by becoming a member of the Empaths, Ascension, and Psychic Stuff community at patreon.com/Wendy Kay. That's patreon.com/WendyKay. I'm Wendy Kay. Remember to live and breathe in divine love energy.